Welcome back. Well, support for January 26 has increased with new polls showing a majority of Australians don't want to change the date of our National Day. Joining us to discuss today's headlines is ALP National President Wayne Swan in Brisbane and Independent MP Dai Le here in the studio. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
So support to keep Australia Day has grown from 47 to 61% over the past 2 years. Dai, are you sensing that there has been a shift in sentiment from the broader community?
Look, our community in Fowler in Western Sydney, we've always celebrated Australia Day. And as you can see, I just want to show you, and I've got this for you, so I have to type it. It's this iconic Australian flag that, this is for you, Sarah.
A little picture of Dai.
A little picture of me in my eye, which is wearing the flag. As you know, people just, love that.
That's a great illustration.
Yeah, but I think it's just something that we love celebrating in our community, and our citizenship ceremonies. A few weeks ago we had about 500 people becoming Australian citizens, new Australian citizens. So it is an important for us For me as a refugee. Australia gave me the opportunity, from a war zone to be the first, member of parliament of a refugee background. Where, that's for me, that is what Australia is about. And so we celebrate that and we acknowledge that. But we also acknowledge our history. No history is perfect, right? No country has a history that is smooth in coming out of, growing up as a nation. There are going to be problems, there are going to be issues, but we need to have a conversation whereby we acknowledge Australia as Australia Day, but also acknowledge our history.
You were saying before about the way that Australia has opened its arms to migrants, yourself included, my family included, and the people wanting to appreciate that part of it, away from, I guess, the negative connotations.
Yes, absolutely, because we, people just want to acknowledge and celebrate that it is Australia Day. They're Australians. Australia has given them an opportunity to rebuild their lives. So if you don't understand how important it is to rebuild one's life when you've lost everything, it's very hard to understand why migrants in particular just embrace Australia Day so much.
Yeah. Swanee, many still do object, of course, to Australia Day being celebrated on Jan 26, and there are still protests planned for Sunday. So it's still quite a disruptive event for many.
Well, as an MP like Dai, I celebrated Australia Day with citizenship ceremonies, honouring volunteers, and have done that for 25 years. In fact, it's one of the things that I miss most about no longer being an MP. So what Australia Day really is about is celebrating what makes our country great and the values that underpin that, and Dai has spoken about that. There's always going to be a debate about the day, and some people will want to call it Invasion Day. I don't think that's the road we should go down, but we should recognise there is a debate. We've only honoured Australia Day on this day since 1994. That's 1994 it became the first official holiday. So there's not some long tradition about this. The most important thing to do is to come together and celebrate what makes the country great. And that includes tolerance, and that includes recognising Indigenous history. Just
quickly then, Swanee, do you think, given the polls are showing, I guess, gaining support for Australia Day in recent times, should the date be enshrined in law?
Well, we've got a public holiday enshrined in law at the moment. We have a national ceremony in Canberra, which the Prime Minister will be at. I'm not sure that Peter Dutton is going, although he's talking a lot about this issue. I think it's important, if that's the law of the land, if that's when the public holiday is, we should celebrate the values that make us great and celebrate our tolerance as well.
All right. Let's move on now. And apprentices who work in the residential sector will now be offered a $10,000 bonus in the PM's latest push to boost housing. Dai, this is part of the PM's intention to build the 1.2 million houses within 5 years, which is such a lofty,
which they won't be able to do.
Plan, right? I mean, is this a way of luring more tradies to the tools?
Well, look, you know what? It's great to encourage young apprentices to get into the sector, but the issue is still there are housing shortages. The cost of building a house has increased tremendously as well. So, and then of course the issue around planning, the Department of Planning, different states has different planning laws, and the bottleneck that's causing, and of course the confidence in the economy. And as you know, a lot of builders and construction businesses have closed down as well because it's just everything's becoming so expensive. So there are a lot of challenges there. So the $10,000, handing out cash, it's great to encourage and entice young people into the trade, but we need to do more than just giving them cash.
Swanee, would it entice you to join the trade?
Well, if I was a carpenter, a carpentry apprentice, earning 2/3 of the minimum wage, it certainly would be an incentive. This is a very practical and useful initiative. People, the labour market is tight. We have more people in work. They're earning more. They're keeping more after tax. We've got to encourage our young people into a career. And that's what we need. We need them to be there sustainably. So what a great idea, practical idea, to get more apprentices into work and into the industry so we can make that significant change in the outlook when it comes to both the cost and supply of housing.
Tradies are doing okay.
Yeah,
Wasn't the union saying down in Victoria that there aren't enough Hiluxes in the country for them to buy?
No, apprentices are not. That's the problem. They're doing very well because we have a shortage of building workers. So taking an initiative like this to get more in at the beginning and talk to them about the prospect of a career for the long term is a really practical and important initiative to dealing with housing affordability and housing supply.
Well, maybe the taxes gained on another alcohol increase will lend itself to that program. But let's move on because, guys, there's a break.
Sorry, what's that mean? What's that mean? You've been drinking.
A drink would go quite well right now, Swanee, so if you've got some, send it down, please. Okay. But I do want to move on to the other headline making story, of course, in Sydney. An unlikely specimen has captured the world's attention this week. Sydney's corpse flower, with crowds flocking to catch the blooming flower. Dai, the flower scent has been likened to rotting food, sweaty socks, even rotting flesh. I don't know. Would you visit Putrescia?
Look, you know what? I mean, I do sometimes pick up my husband's, socks and sons and stuff, and I know the smell. But look, it's great to have such a great specimen like that. But of course, I don't know if I'll be standing there kind of waiting for that smell. However, I'm sure there are other wonderful things that we can see at our botanic garden. And the botanists who are working there. So yeah.
I mean, I love the work they do, but I just don't really understand it. Oh, we've got a bit of action. This is the live shot, of course, of the corpse flower. But Swanee, I mean, look, it looks interesting, obviously, but I'm not sure if I'd line up. Would you?
No, I wouldn't. You could leave it in Sydney. I prefer the sweet smell of a macadamia nut tree, actually.
Oh, you lucky Queenslanders. All right, guys, thank you both so much for your time. Have a great weekend.